Hi everybody, welcome back to the garden. I'm down here in Southern Ontario, Canada, Zone 6B. It's early September for reference. And today I'm actually not starting out in my garden. I'm on my front porch. And I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about the things that I'm doing and I like to do around this time of the year. When things are sort of cooler and winding down and the weather is much more manageable and the plants are starting to sort of go dormant, slow down their growth. So one of the things, and one of the beautiful, wonderful things that you get to do if you start your plants from seed, or if you have native plants in your garden that are self-sowing or perennial or produce seeds, is you can start to seed collect. So I have here a delphinium, and I started this from an heirloom seed this year. And it's already grown, and I have these all over the garden, and I love them. And they're meant to be perennials, so we'll see how it overwinters in this pot. But you can start to collect seed heads this time of year. So you can see all of these flowers that turn into seed heads have tiny seeds inside them. So what you can do is you can actually collect the seed heads and either scatter them where you want them, hopefully to come up next season in the spring through summer, or you can be a little bit more controlled with it and you can pick the seeds and you can start them in cell packs and seed starting mix indoors until you get little plants, little seedlings, and then when the summer warms next year you can plant them where you'd like them. So you can go either way. You can take some chances and kind of scatter them and hope that the seeds come up on their own and they like it there, or you can be a little bit more controlled and start your seeds indoors and then plant them elsewhere. So that's the one thing that you can do, and it's a great thing to do this time of the year because you get a lot of seed heads and you get a lot of opportunity to sort of start planning your garden next year. In fact, a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are really about starting to think about your garden next year. Is going to be about kind of thinking about a little bit of garden design. So another thing that I like to do is look around for plants that are struggling or that haven't really grown, have signs of stress. Maybe their leaves are falling off, maybe the color's off, maybe they're really dry, maybe they just haven't grown. In my case, I was looking around and I planted this blueberry, pink lemonade blueberry bush. And I knew it was risky because blueberries need an acidic soil to be able to grow and access nutrients. And I don't have acidic soil anywhere on my property. But I took my chances and I kind of planted it in this smaller alcove at the front of my house where it gets a lot of sun, and I was adjusting with fertilizer for acid loving plants and sulfur, which is meant to make the soil more acidic. It is difficult to do, make your soil acidic, but I tried. But I think that the blueberry, as you can see, it just wasn't liking it there. It was struggling. It's not looking very good. It didn't produce anything this year, and I planted this last year. So I decided that I would try and moving it into pot, where it'd be a lot easier to try and manipulate the acidity of the soil. And also it would receive more water. Back here in my patio, I have a bunch of pots and planters. And so I water a lot more regularly here. The patch where it was placed in front of my house gets a lot of sun, but there's a bit of an overhang of the roof and it's very dry. And clearly I'm not really watering there very much because the rest of the stuff there is a lot of herbs, so really like it dry and don't really ask for a lot of water, which is why I put them there. But this blueberry wasn't having it. So all to say is, this time of year, look around for plants that are struggling and not doing so well and think about moving them. It's a really good time to dig them up. They're starting to, things are starting to cool off. I think it's maybe, in the low 20s today. Things are starting to cool off, so the plant isn't going to get a lot of heat stress. It's going to have time to acclimatize to its new environment before the frost hits, which is probably going to be around the end of October if you're in my zone, in my area. So you still have a good month and a half, 2 months for this plant to kind of settle into where it is. So of course with the blueberry I did add a little bit of sulfur and the acid-loving fertilizer and watered it in well. I'm going to continue watering it well for the rest of the season, and then sort of just tuck it in under this semi-protected area next to the house for the winter, and see if it survives. So along the same lines, you want to start looking around your garden and seeing any bare spots, any things that you don't like, things that you want to add, move around, and maybe just don't work for you visually or practically. This is a really great time of year to go shopping for perennials. So if you're like me and you're a thrifty gardener and you don't want to spend more than you have to, but you do love to garden, you do love to go plant shopping, this is an excellent time of year to go shopping for perennials. Go around to some of the garden centers. Many of them will still have a decent selection of perennials, and then they will be heavily discounted. So one of the things that I actually found in my kind of dilly-daddling around greenhouses this last week is this absolutely gorgeous dwarf spruce, and I actually left this on here for you guys. This is from Tara, which is up in Oakville, but it was $10. So I got a $10 hardy dwarf spruce perennial, which would normally go for, I think the original price is $59.99. Okay, it's $10. So because it is the end of the season and they need to kind of get rid of these plants instead of having to store them, it's going to be a lot more discounted. Now, you are taking a risk that some of these plants are going to be root bound, some of them might not be as healthy, some of them might not succeed in your garden because maybe they were in their pots for a little too long. It is a risk, but for me, the $10 kind of gamble is worth it. And also I was looking around at the plants and they looked very healthy. They're very rich, green, vibrant. They weren't dry. There weren't any roots poking out of the bottom of the pot. And even if there were, and if the plant is looking healthy, I would have still bought it, honestly. I watered it well, I put it in the spot, and then I, of course, planted it. Lots of mulch, make sure that it's nice and watered, and we'll see how it goes. But this is a really good kind of place to add a little bit of interest. As you can see, there's some tender perennials, and I really needed to mix up some more sort of green, some more textures in this area. So, and I've been looking around or planning to get something that's more of a hardy perennial and evergreen here. So this actually worked out perfectly. So around this time of year, definitely look around garden centers for really great deals on perennials. Especially, I would stay away from annuals at this point. Mums are the big one. There's a ton of annuals and they're beautiful, and garden centers are still selling them. The mums are really out and about now. They're going to, you're going to be spending $10, $20, $30 depending on the size of your pot on something that is going to die in 2 months. Now, if that's your thing, then that's fine. I think it's a waste of money. If you love mums, go for the hardy mum, not the garden mum. So you can, if you're careful about looking at the label, there is such a thing as a hardy mum. And if you get it in the ground now, it will perennialize. So it will continue to bloom every year. And I'm actually going to show you my hardy mum that I have out in the front that I bought at Costco last year in a moment. But another great alternative is asters. Asters are native, they're hardy, they're perennials, they will come back and bloom year after year, and you're much better off spending your money there. I would stay away from the annual mums. As beautiful as they are, they're non-native. They're annual, you're wasting money away, you're going to have to buy them every year. It doesn't serve the wildlife, it doesn't serve the insects, it doesn't serve the pollinators. And it's just, there's better options out there. Again, like asters are fantastic and they look almost identical, and they come these beautiful rich purples and pinks and I believe whites. But I'm gonna go show you, if you are stuck on the mums and if that's all you can find, I'm gonna show you my hardy mum that I purchased last year and dug into the ground right now. Okay, so this is a hardy mum that I purchased last year, and as you can see, it's absolutely stunning. This was a Costco purchase, and I planted it into the ground, and it stayed and came up again this year, and it is lovely. And I mean, absolutely love this color. It is the one mum that I have allowed myself to have because it is kind of a tricky corner of the property, and I just really love the color. And they are kind of balanced off and complemented by some of these echinaceas and a native dogwood, which is starting to have its berries, which I also added into the garden this year. It was also on sale from Canadian Tire. I think it was like $12, which is awesome. So there's an option for you if you love mums. Just go for the hardy variety. And the last thing I'm going to mention in this video is about compost. So this time of year is a really good time, and again, you'll be able to find deals for this to get compost and add either to your raised beds or to top off your flower beds or your fruiting trees or your pots or whatever you need to add essentially organic medium to feed your plants into the next season, and add a layer of mulch, organic matter, to kind of help protect and give nutrients, ongoing nutrients to the soil to keep your plants healthy. So you're going to need some compost. You're going to need aged manure. You're going to need compost. You're going to need something to kind of top off the areas in your garden where you need nutrients. And for me, that's predominantly, most importantly, my raised vegetable beds. There's a mosquito flying around me, and I don't want to get stung because I have been absolutely eaten by mosquitoes this year. Anyway, you're going to need some compost. This is the time to get it. You can either do it now or you can do it in early spring. The problem with doing it in early spring, for me personally, what I noticed is that it is not available early enough, because I want to start my vegetable garden, especially pretty early on. There's a lot of things that I can do early on, and I want my beds prepped and ready to go early spring. I want my garden, kind of as it's waking up, already kind of set up and ready to go. So I prefer getting my soil, or my compost rather, this time of year. So you can do a couple of things. You can get bagged compost. What I find is that if you have a little bit, it's fine. You know, Canadian Tire, you go get your sheep manure, it's great, it's $4. Great. But once you have raised beds, or you have a big yard that you need to top off and take care of, you're going to need a lot of bags. So my recommendation, if you have any sizable amount of compost that you need, or if you just have a pile where you can store some compost and use it throughout the season, go for bulk. So there's different companies that provide bulk. And what I did is luckily we have somebody where we can borrow a truck. You go to the yard, they dump a cubic yard, or however much you want. I go for a cubic yard because it's manageable, of compost. It cost me about $40 for a cubic yard of compost for them to dump it. We just have to drive there and shovel it out and deal with it. Go get it now. You either put it on a pile, use it as needed, or you top off your beds in the fall, the next couple of months. In my case, the best option that I could go for was triple mix, which includes compost, manure, loam, and sand, I believe, or something else in there. But it's a mix. It's the best option that I could find. Unfortunately, there wasn't really any pure compost available in the volume and the price that I needed it, but this will do just fine. This one's from Van Beeks. They're known for having good stuff usually, and it's worked for me in the past. I'm happy with it. But it was worth getting a cubic yard of, a pile of compost for, under $40, versus if I had the same amount, a same volume of compost that I bought with bags, it would cost me over $200. So keep that in mind. The other option is you can get it delivered. The cubic yard of compost delivered to me would have cost $160 is the quote. Still less than buying bag compost, but obviously you're getting charged for the delivery and the labor, so it's going to, it still triples your cost. So if you can have a neighbor, if you have a friend, if you have a family member who has a truck, borrow it for, an hour, drive out there, get your compost, your soil, dump loose into the truck, and do a little bit of manual labor if you can do it. If you can't, I totally get it. Get it delivered. and just go through it slowly. But that would be my recommendation for this time of year, is get your organic matter to top off your beds. I'm going to show you what the pile looks like. Okay, so here we are in a kind of a out of the way but accessible spot in my garden, and this is what a cubic yard of triple mix in this case looks like. So it's in our case, it's manageable. I took maybe less than an hour of shoveling out of the truck, when wheelbarrows and a couple of wheelbarrow rides back here to dump it until I'm ready to top off my beds, which is, I'm gonna wait for my veggies and my tomatoes to completely finish. I still have some scarce ones, but still have some ripening on the vine, so I'm gonna wait